a warm welcome to another Essential Quinn. Thank you for joining me today. Today I'm covering Neil Oliver, who we all know as the Coast Guy. Neil did a series of films on the British coastline, which was on the BBC for a number of years, and these are very, very popular indeed. And we all grew to know and love Neil Oliver. Now Neil now works for GB News. He has a show at 6 p.m. on a Saturday, channel 236 in the UK. And these shows that Neil does start with a 10-minute monologue. And his monologues and opinions are very, very profound indeed. Neil has a lot to say about the state of the world, the politics, the environment, and I think we need to take note of this great man. I would go as far to say that Neil is a man of the people. And further than that, I would say Neil is a modern day prophet. Some of the topics and the way he puts them over are quite profound. And I've put these clips together, hopefully in a symbiotic way, which tell you about the man and his message. And I hope you find them very, very useful. Less from me, over to Neil for the rest of this video.
This is the Easter weekend, so this is the most important. For Christians, this is the central point of the year. This is the big holiday, the big festival, because this is the triumph of Jesus over death. This is the big one. He's crucified on the Friday, and then on the third day after, he rises again. So death is defeated once and for all. So it's a freedom. It's freedom for humanity from all the tribulations of sin and death and all the rest of it. That's gone. So this is the big one for Christianity. I was thinking about that, especially as I realised especially when I woke up this morning and I thought it's Good Friday, and as I said at the top, Easter is all about freedom. It's freedom from death for Christianity, and it's the remembrance of freedom from bondage for the Jewish faith. And I thought, what a time to be thinking about what freedom actually means, because what you're reminded of with Easter and what you're reminded of at Passover is that freedom is a right, but that rights are not always free. I think that's it in a nutshell. Freedom is a right, but rights are not always free. And we've reached a fork in the road where we're going to have to decide if we're going to be free or not. And Good Friday and Easter Monday are times to remember that freedom is secured with sacrifice. From time to time you have to go through something dreadful to get to where you want to be, to get to the sunlit uplands. Easter's a reminder of that, of sacrifice, and that freedom is a right, but rights are not always free.
A crucial part of the fight back we must make to reclaim our world from the autocrats, technocrats and ideologues is reminding ourselves of the unique value of the individual human being. If the proposed future must find billions of us useless, then that future is not right for humankind, not good enough, period, case closed. During the 1950s, there was an encounter at MIT between Marvin Minsky, a father of artificial intelligence, and Doug Engelbart, another icon of the information age. Minsky told an audience, "We're going to make machines intelligent, we're going to make them conscious," to which Engelbart replied, "You're going to do all that for the machines. What are you going to do for the people?" We're there now, with intelligent machines all but able to think for themselves. It's with this technology that an elite plans to make our species redundant in every way. Engelbart's question is therefore more urgent than before. Just what are they going to do for the people? And much more importantly, crucially in fact, just what are we going to do for ourselves? Here's the thing. Our species is the most extraordinary creation of the universe. Inside our skulls we're equipped with 3 pounds of rosy pink meat, able to conceive of and to seek to understand the infinity of the universe. As far as we know, we're unique in that universe. We have the wit and the skills to dream of travelling to the stars. We can do anything and everything, from smallest to greatest that we set our minds to. and they dare to call us useless eaters.
And then will come another question, because just because the powers that be legislate, which is to say, just because they draft and enact legislation, does not make it lawful. There's a difference between legal, which is legislation, which is what they pass through the House of Commons and the House of Lords and then enact on the statute book. There's a difference between that and what is actually lawful. Lawful comes from the common law and natural law. It's the difference between right and wrong. And people need to waken up to the fact that just because a sitting government or a parliament passes legislation does not make that legislation lawful. Quite often, quite the contrary. From time to time, powers that be go bad, go wrong, and they start legislating against the people and against freedom. Now, that's unlawful. There comes a time when the only moral action by people that know the difference between good and bad, right and wrong, is to stand up and say no. Just because it's the legislation doesn't make it lawful. And that's all coming down the line at us under the guise of net zero and 15-minute cities and all of the rest of it. These are tricks to, by sleight of hand, to take away our liberties and our freedoms. But at any point, it only takes enough of us to stand up and say no. We know the difference between right and wrong, and we are free people. If the people decide that collectively that we are not to be governed, that we are ungovernable, then there's nothing that the powers that be can do about it. One way or another, we have to be governed by consent. And the moment enough of us take away our consent, the game's a bogey.
More and more I think about the disaster movies, and if this isn't a man-made disaster we're living through right now, then I don't know what is. I think about when the survivors step blinking out of the smoke and darkness to confront a ruined White House and a toppled Statue of Liberty, or a burning Big Ben and a flattened GCHQ. They realised, those survivors, that what they thought mattered was, in the end, just a house, just a lifeless lump of copper and steel, just a bell tower, just an office block. Those survivors look around at the devastation, the receding floodwaters of the tsunami, and realise they were caring about stuff that didn't amount to a hill of beans. They get ready to start again with all that really matters, which is people they can trust, which is each other. If we have that, then we have all that we will need. Everywhere. And they went right ahead and did it anyway. Safe and effective, they said, over and over and over. Misinformation, anyone? If they were doing their jobs and reading reports like this, then Chris Whitty would have known, Patrick Vallance would have known, Anthony Fauci would have known. This information is out there now, in the public domain, though heavily redacted, and God alone knows what remains redacted. And so why isn't this front page and main TV news all around the world? Why not? Who watches the watchers? Who guards the guards? The answer is as stark as it is depressing. Westminster awards itself the power to make laws, enforce those laws, and decree the punishment for any transgressions of those laws. This is a textbook definition of the tyranny that our Constitution, enshrined in Magna Carta 1215, was specifically shaped to prevent. And yet here we are, with the watchers watching the watchers, the guards guarding the guards. It's as obvious as Boris Johnson's estrangement from the truth that this tyranny should never have been allowed to evolve, and that since it has, we must not tolerate it a moment longer. Decisions of importance must be made by those with skin in the game, but with no means to profit either directly or indirectly from the decisions they come to. Who guards the guards is a 2,000-year-old question. Older by 500 years is the Tao Te Ching, the Book of the Way, by Lao Tse, the old master. Last week, a friend reminded me of words that sound as though they might have been written this morning. When rich speculators prosper while farmers lose their land, when government officials spend money on weapons instead of cures, when the upper class is extravagant and irresponsible while the poor have nowhere to turn, all this is robbery and chaos. Robbery and chaos. That's what our leaders and their little wizards have inflicted upon us. It was true 2,500 years ago, and it's still true now. That old book also warns us about those who try to control, who use force to protect their power. They take from those who don't have enough and give to those who have far too much. This is how we will beat them, how we will win. by remembering what our ancestors learned long ago and finally doing something about it. Here's the thing. It's long past time to watch the guards. What we need all over the West, and once and for all, is a changing of the guards. The Christmas story tells us that 2,000 and more years ago, a baby boy was born into poverty and into obscurity. During the 33 years of the life of the man he became, he was recognised for what he really was, his true value, by relatively few. He died as he had lived, in obscurity. He was executed for standing up to and challenging the establishment. But by his actions, the world was changed forever, for the better. Sometimes the most obvious people change the world. At other times, it's the people the world does not notice, that the world thinks nothing of and so ignores, who end up making all the difference. I hope and also trust that this is one of those times. I have no faith in the obvious, loud people with their hands on the levers of power. We will be saved by our own actions in defiance of those who care for us not a jot and who prioritise only those they serve, which is to say the already rich and already powerful, the banks, the markets and the global corporations. I say we should ignore the whole lot of them. Here's the thing. Together, right now, we already have everything we will ever need, which is to say each other. We can share food and warmth and light. We are free people. It's Christmas. And the Christmas message is that hope is here, light in the dark. Merry Christmas, you beautiful people.
You may call the people a mob, he said, but do not forget that a mob often speaks the sentiments of the people. Neoliberal stooges with the right connections, pretending to care about the people but only focused on securing more wealth and power for others like themselves, are as nothing in the face of those who have right on their side. I was blind to what was going on for most of my life. I admit as much freely now, but it seems to me it matters to say so. If the world around you just feels wrong at the moment, if it makes you uncomfortable in your skin, it's not because you're going mad, but because you know the difference between right and wrong, and so much is so wrong. It's absolutely not the job of governments and leaders to make so many people so unhappy, so frightened of the future. It's utterly wrong that meaningful influence is in the process of being ceded to transnational bodies comprised of unelected, unaccountable placemen and women, the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum. It's time to assess whether they're fit for purpose. NATO, the United Nations and the rest. Any and all groups can and do go wrong, and when they do, it's the responsibility of everyone to say so and to do something about it. The internet is a double-edged sword and cuts both ways. The rich and powerful plainly do not understand the new tech of social media, failed to see it would empower not just them, but all of us as well. American comedian George Carlin looked at those in power in his own country and said, "It's a big club and you ain't in it." It might be a big club in terms of power and money, but its members are few in number. We are many, and we are right, while they are wrong, and in the wrong. We know it, and deep down, they know it too. History has a great deal to teach us if we will only pay attention to it. It boils down to this. It's all happened before, and it will keep happening until we say no.